you have to see humans in systems.
Mm-hmm.
And far too often, people see other humans transactionally. What can you do for me? What can I do for you? I owe him, I owe her. It's a tit for tat. What's actually happening is our minds and our brains and our hearts, our cells literally sync up with one another. And that enables or stops development.
Expanding possibilities, the Mindset Zone.
I'm your host, Anna Melikian, and before we start with today's show, please remember to visit mindset.zone. Yes, instead of .com, it's .zone. There you can find all the episodes and other amazing resources, all at mindset.zone. For over 25 years, Natasha Todorovic-Cowan has been working with leaders, consultants, coaches, and organizations applying her proprietary spiral dynamics cultural DNA survey, leadership assessments, and change readiness index to predict hurdles to change. Her company, National Value Center Consulting, and its partners in delivering spiral dynamic programs have worked in organizations all over the world, including Boeing, Greenpeace, and Volvo, just to name three of a very, very long list. And it's truly my pleasure to have her here in the Mindset Zone podcast. Welcome, Natasha.
Hannah, it is truly a pleasure to be here with you today. Thank you for inviting me.
And I would like to start with an ask, because I was listening to, you do a lot of training, you have so many things out there, webinars, master classes, and in one of these, I listened to you tell the story about the map metaphor to navigate an unknown city. So can you tell us that?
Well, yeah, because here's the thing. When we have experiences in life, we are trained, we are habituated, we fall into habit. So the story is, if you were going on a trip, if you were traveling and you had a coach and the coach says, oh my gosh, I really want to help you with this trip. I know this is your dream, Anna, to go to Paris. I have a friend and they've got maps. So let me ask them if they'll share their maps. And then the friend is generous and says, you know what? Here, take my maps, give them to Anna because I really want her to have a wonderful time in Paris. And you know that these are really special maps, that they are most up to date, that they have been well researched, that everything that you need to find your way around Paris is there, and your dream is to find the Eiffel Tower. And then you pull out the map and you're in Paris and you kind of see the Eiffel Tower over the buildings. And then you look at the map and it just happens to be a map down the coast of Iceland to Reykjavik, right? Now you look at it and you go, well, my gosh, this is Iceland. Of course, this isn't going to get me there. But the problem is with the maps that we use as consultants, as coaches, as parents, as spouses, we are using maps that we picked up along the journey of life that are for Iceland to Reykjavik, but not for Paris to go to the Eiffel Tower.
And I think that it really illustrates a lot the work in the mindset arena, because we can see mindsets as the habits of our mind.
Absolutely.
We develop as we grow up, the culture, the influence, so many genetics, so many things. It's a mix of things. And we have this map to see the world, to keep the map on our habits that we create, conscious and unconscious. And we run in so many trouble because it's not the map that we need in a certain time in our lives.
Well, I have a question for you. So this is a question that I sometimes ask my audiences, right? It's like, how many of you have dogs, right?
Me.
All right. And then when you open the back door to let the dog out, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you notice, there is a path around the yard where the dog has worn their tracks.
Yes.
Our minds are like dog tracks, where we follow the habits of our pacing.
Absolutely. And there is nothing wrong with it. The issue is that we have to be flexible enough if the circumstances demand a new learning to be open for this new learning.
Exactly.
And you have, because you have decades of experience in working with organizations in complex change. And you have this amazing model that is called spiral dynamics that allows you to work with these big organizations in helping them in the change, in the transformation process. Can you define in a simple way what is spiral dynamics? Just like lift a little bit of the veil to give us a taste of it.
So, Spiral Dynamics is our brand. It's a program that consists of a series of courses and also our proprietary tool suite. And the spiral essentially, if you want to think of spiral as human nature, who are the people? What are their mental maps and models? What are their preferences for leading, their preferences for parenting, their preferences for learning, their preferences for managing or being managed? And then the dynamics part is change. So it's essentially human nature and how we change and evolve and emerge and develop.
I love it. So the spiral is the human element, the human growth and development. That I totally love the image of the spiral because there is a back and forward that is not really a repetition. If we are evolving and developing, it's not a repetition.
I love your background because we could go down that rabbit hole. But, what you just brought up is a really critical point, is that we spiral back and forth between I direct my life and my reality, and the engine of movement comes from inside me, to I'm sensing around myself, the world about me, the outside context, taking that information and changing myself to adapt to that world. One is a change the world approach. The other is a change me to adapt to the world approach. So if we start with those two, that's what cycles back and forth between the express self to the deny self. And that's where the warm and cool come in.
So is the internal change, the external change, and the dynamic of those two forces?
Yeah. So if you can imagine someone and you probably had clients like this who are, I'm in charge, don't tell me what to do, I'm going to do it my way. And sometimes they live an entire life like that. And other times they're like, oh my gosh, I keep getting myself into trouble. I need to think about this differently. Can you help me with this? Oh, I need to listen to my market more. I need to listen to my coach or consultant more. I'm going to open up and I'm going to be willing to take feedback and try to change myself to be a better person.
And so let's try to bring these abstract concepts in a way that people can understand. Can be either organization or a person, but can you give us an example on how the spiral dynamics model can help a person change?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the organizations that we worked with was An 85-year-old family-owned company. The owner, founder of it passed away. He had a will. He was leaving it to his 3 sons. But the mother got it first. And then she rewrote the will entirely and left it to her favorite one son. So apart from all the mother, son, father, son dynamics, this organization was being torn apart by these brothers who were trying to negotiate not only their internal family pain, but who was going to control this organization. And it was divided into 4 silos, actually. One silo behind each brother and a silo behind the founder.
Mm-hmm.
So over 4 years, now this was a multi-million-dollar lawsuit. And they knew, and we knew that if it continued, the entire company would be torn apart. But the emotional attachment to position, to job, to what I get to do, what they do, was also very much ingrained in this organization. And their average tenured employee had been there for, like 25 years.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
Right. So this was very entrenched culturally. It was chaotic at the top, so chaotic that they couldn't get a CEO in. And our job was to help them understand their culture, get out of the battle, find a trajectory forward, and to the degree that it was possible, start to heal some of this wounding. And it took 4 years. And it went from family owned to an employee stock ownership program. Oh. And a few years ago, it was sold to a major international brand. And once the transition was complete, it had been the most profitable that it had ever been in its history.
Wow. So from a chaotic, really in the brink of bringing everything down situation, by working together with this spiral dynamic system, you really managed to get the best outcome possible.
Given the conditions, yeah. So it helps, with the assessments, with a good analysis, with good access, with support at the top levels. And it was from board level to shop floor. With support at the right levels, it can be transformational in the way people relate to one another. And that's that cultural cohesion. And also in the way people relate to themselves and the job to be done and their markets.
So it's not one or the other, is both. And you have to approach both, again, that internal change and the external change.
Yeah, I call them relationship systems. You have to see humans in systems.
Mm-hmm.
And far too often, people see other humans transactionally. What can you do for me? What can I do for you? I owe him. I owe her. It's a tit for tat. What's actually happening is our minds and our brains and our hearts, our cells literally sync up with one another. And that enables or stops development. And that's why you've got to be aware of this relationship system that's happening with the individual as they relate to themselves, or as they relate to one another in team, or as a culture evolves organizationally. If you can get your fingers on the pulse of that, 70% of change fails organizationally.
And
right?
even at personal level, think about New Year's resolutions. How long do they last?
I have made a resolution that there will be no more New Year's resolutions for me.
Yep, absolutely. Because it's the relationship with the self and with the environment around. So I want to learn this even more for people. I know this is complex, but even learning a little bit about your own life story. You are not born like me. You are not born here in the U.S.
True.
You were born in Yugoslavia, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
That under the communist, your parents. Tell us a little bit about how old were you when your parents decided that they had to change.
Well, that was a really fascinating story. So I was born in the former Yugoslavia, and my parents were very apolitical. And I mean, you're right. This was a communist country. If you weren't part of the political machine, you had no hope for positions. Even my parents were living with my father's mother in a 1-bedroom apartment. And, they're looking at this kid either, I don't know, on the way or there going, oh my God, we are going to be stuck and this is going to be a horrible life. And they really despised politics. They just knew it was just a mess and trouble. And so my father got an offer from Colorado State University, and he had to escape. And he somehow got himself on a boat. It was a 3-month journey across the ocean. He got himself to the United States, got himself to Colorado. And as he got set up, he called for me and my mother. And then she had to figure out how to get the heck out of the country with a baby and then fly across the world to this entirely different world where, she understood a little English, but not very much. And she had to teach herself how to speak English, and she did it watching soap operas.
Wow. And how old were you at the time?
I think I was like about 2, 3.
Oh. So you don't have you have the recollections more about the stories that you heard about it.
Well, I remember, Anna, being on the airplane. I remember that. I remember glimpses of being in the former Yugoslavia. Like, I remember sitting in the closet playing with shoes, right? Because I love shoes. I don't know. It was genetic.
Let's embrace that.
Exactly. And I remember, with like my arm up in the air, like holding onto my mother's hand as we were getting onto a bus.
Wow.
Right. Those little bits I remember. And then as a kid, I do remember living at the faculty apartments. I remember sitting out there because people weren't responding to whatever I was saying. I learned to change what I was asking. And what I was asking was, do you want to be my friend? Do you want to play with me?
Yes. Is that human need of interaction, of a relationship? But from the perspective that you can have now, looking back, how do you think that was for your parents, this change? Because this was what a change. Or they say, if we think that organizations nowadays are going through change, the change from coming from one country, even if it's bad there, to another country that you don't speak well the language, that the culture is different. That is
so different.
That is incredible. But how do you think for them, in terms of that internal human development, the internal change and the external change, how do you saw that playing in your parents?
It was fascinating because they understood a world that I didn't really live. Right. So as a kid, I kept trying to translate to them what this world was like. And they were still, remember the map, right?
Yes.
They were in a new country, but they were, they were close to the Eiffel Tower, but they were still using the map down the coast of Iceland to get to Reykjavik.
Because was what they were used to, what they were raised in, and you coming here so early, you were building a different map.
Yeah. And what was interesting was they wanted me to build that map. So when we spoke at home, we only spoke English.
Mm.
And there's a guy I met, every so often I'll meet somebody from the former Yugoslavia and they'll start speaking to me in Serbian. And I'm like, in my body, it feels familiar, but I have no idea what you just said. Wow. I can ask for my mother and I can ask for some milk.
Yes.
That's what I got.
Yeah, but I bet that experience help you once you're traveling the world, working with so many organizations and clients. I think you travel over 50 different countries. Tell me, how do you see that experience at help you working with other people and organizations in these transformations and big changes?
Well, that is about culture. Because we moved from Colorado to Montreal. In Quebec, there was a massive cultural war between English-speaking Canada, French-speaking Canada. And I found myself trying to understand what was going on culturally there. So being very culturally attuned, being very attuned to how things are here, because I'd had 3 massive transitions by the time I was like 8 years old.
So was from Europe to here in the United States, Colorado, then Colorado, Canada, Quebec, and then still another one?
And then back here.
Wow, back here. So you really, for a young age, as almost a survival need, you had to get used to change your maps.
Frequent map changes, right? Because I had this dream of working in the fashion business, right?
Wow. Mm-hmm.
So I spent 5 years running a division and designing and, predicting what the customer was going to want 18 months before they wanted it. And then this thing called NAFTA came in. And within a few short months, it literally wiped out the entire industry.
Wow. Another change.
Another massive change.
And how do you say, how from there did you become a coach and consultant?
Well, I've never been a coach, but I got into training and development and consulting and working. When I first got out of the fashion business, I was teaching folks to do public speaking and doing personal development programs. And I think I took every NLP training that was out there. And to change, I always found for me that an educational portion helped me to shift my thinking, because they're the things we don't know. Yes. And until you get into the space of another being and their understanding and experience and knowing, you're not confronted with the limits of your understanding and experience. And that's what international travel does. If you're able to open up to what's happening culturally.
So is that continual, you really take the lifelong learning to the extreme, always learning, always curious. And I think I spoke about the coaching because, even if you didn't have a coaching kind of training or certification, you are very coach-like in your approach to train. And in my conversations with you, you really are trying to elicit the best in people.
That is the core of what we do. It's the exploration of the inner world of the other person. Because when that becomes clear, not only to them, but the people that you are trying to knit them together with, then you can have functional, healthy relationship.
So I have to throw you a big hot potato to the plate here, because we are still in this COVID situation. I don't know when people will listening to the recording, if it's after it's published or years later. But this situation with the COVID-19 is lasting longer than anybody, I think, or we wish. I will put the expected is a different story, but that nobody, I think, wish that this lasts so long and be so disrupting everybody's lives and companies and organizations. So, but from your own experience of leading with transformation, change, and disruption, what will be tips, guides, or some clues that you can give us to navigate this change?
I think one of the big pieces that I think is the biggest help for folks is understanding and being in touch with your own internal meaning making and reactions to your experiences. If you're aware of the words that are going on in your head, your dog tracks, the maps that you're using, and the places where you are, and if those maps and places do or don't match up, and when they don't, your reactions to that self-awareness, those reactions are informational as to what you need. And just because we give ourselves stories around what we need doesn't mean that those stories are true about meeting those needs.
So that openness and awareness to why I'm reacting, I'm feeling these things, I'm having these emotions, and we make a meaning of that, but we also can be open to more possibilities, to maybe there is a different way of approaching it. Maybe I don't have to react. Maybe I can press the pause button and there is another way, even if I don't have any clue now what that other way is.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been with my consulting coaching clients, been going through a beliefs program with them where we're helping them to elicit beliefs, to work with beliefs, to change beliefs. And the thing I keep repeating to them is the content of the beliefs is one thing. We can tell ourselves stories around our beliefs and, whether it's a belief or whether it's true. But the defining a belief is filling in the gap between knowing and not knowing. So we'll take little bits of knowing and then fill in the other stuff with our beliefs. Some people take those beliefs as fact and life.
So you cannot change because...
You cannot change it because this is the absolute truth. So the other part of the beliefs is not only the content of it, but I keep encouraging them to look for the answer to this question, which is, how does this person hold this belief? And if you could get to the, how am I holding this? Is this absolute life or death? Or is this I don't know, maybe I'll play around with it. What if I tried to believe something else? What if I didn't believe this? What if something else was possible, right? There are a variety of ways to hold it. And when you get that difference between what are the beliefs as contents versus how are we holding these beliefs as containers, you make a radical difference in the lives of, your clients, but also yourself when you can step back and look at those beliefs in that way, or your emotional reactions in that way.
Because even when that beliefs are so old, so close to the core that people cannot let go of them, sometimes I think, and go back to the image of the spiral, if we bring another level or another dimension to respect that, but allows them to see more, I think there is the opportunity of change there.
I look at a 5-point model when it comes to change. And one of those we just talked about, which is what's at the content level, right? What are the things that people talk about as important to them, whether they're beliefs or values or memes or behaviors or, that. And then the second layer or level to that is connection. And we do not transform in isolation. We transform as part of these human relationship systems. So the job of leadership is relating. The job of a parent is relating. And in these relating moments, they can be very toxic, shutting people down, or they can be so empowering in just seeing the living being that's there and communicating that it's okay for them to become who they are and rise up to their full potential.
I love it. Absolutely love it. And I don't love it that we are in the top of our time, but I would love, if people are curious to know more about the spiral dynamics, about your work, what will be the next step for them?
Best next step is jump on the spiraldynamics.org website, go to our advanced resources and pick a title of an article that intrigues you. Oh. We have them on leadership. We have them on terrorism. We have them on neurolinguistic programming. We've got a number of different articles. And if you're interested in reaching out to me, just feel free to send me an email, natasha@spiraldynamics.org.
So the thing about getting to the resources, finding something that entices their curiosity, and advanced resources is resources and then advanced resources, and then just start to explore there. And there is any book that you will recommend as a first step if somebody likes to read books still?
For those of you who love books, we have, I would say, Levels of Human Existence. That is where the core of this work began with my husband's mentor, Claire Graves. It goes through, we put together a talk that he delivered, and we did it in a very clear, simple way where not only does he outline how he conducted his research and he presents some of his research notes, there's an amazing Q&A, and his one of his favorite papers is reprinted in it. So it's a simple read. It's an easy read.
Love it.
And if you're thinking that's fun, then, contact me.
Yes. And I will make sure that all these links go under in the show notes for this episode. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you.
Oh, you are so awesome. Thank you so much for having me. It's been an honor, a privilege, and a treasure. Thank you.
Expanding possibilities, the mindset zone.
Thank you for listening, and remember to visit mindset.zone. Yes, instead of .com, it's .zone. There you can find all the episodes and other amazing resources, all at mindset.zone. As always, I'm so grateful you are here. Expand what's possible for you, for the ones around you, for the world.